Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Today's episode is brought to you by Your Clear Next Step in the Changemaker Certification Program.
Would you like to save time by solving the right problem sooner with a realistic and measurable plan? Reduce overwhelm by finding more sustainably productive ways to work? Improve employee morale by creating more positive workdays from within? Stay competitive by tightening your turn or increasing your agility in adapting to changing customer demands? If you said yes to those things, then we have the solution for you.
Interested in becoming a changemaker? Give us a call at 515-442-0545.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us again on an edition of the Even Better podcast. This is Sinikka, and I am delighted that you're back with us again. And I am so thrilled to welcome our guest today, David Ziemann. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
This is such a joy. So I met David years ago, and I have just enjoyed the growth in his career. And I can say I knew him when, but I have just delighted in the continued growth that he's got in his career. And I saw his name in lights recently and said, oh, let's get him onto our podcast here, and let's hear what he's doing. When I met him, he was already emerging as a leader in his own or in his organization, and then it seems like on the side, because he's not busy enough in his day job, he's doing a thing on the side, doing some other stuff. So we're going to see in this conversation, David, where you want to take us. But you've been guiding high performing software teams. You work in the space of leadership. You work in the space of IT, of software developers. You work in the space of MoreThanCoders, which I just really love this name, MoreThanCoders. So you're going to have to unpack this for us. And you talk about soft skills for those folks who are in, for software engineers, for folks who are in the IT space, and helping people who are in that space become technology professionals, right? Become better at and build their skills in those skills that we call, quote, soft skills, but they're really the hard stuff, right? They're the stuff that makes such a difference in how we connect as humans. And you have thrived in your career, and they love you where you are, and you're doing other stuff on the side. So David, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. This is a way better introduction than I probably could have given myself. But my career, I've been an Iowa native, and had the opportunity to really get technical background. And as I was going through this, in my first parts of my career, I noticed that there was a really big need within, college programs, within career programs to focus on the non-technical skills that most people don't really pay attention to. You don't have a class really around how to work within an office space. You don't have a class around thinking about, how do I present this idea in a way that I can actually get buy-in or engage with others to bring them into the conversation. So a few years ago, actually, about a year and a half ago, I started MoreThanCoders, and it's focused on those IT professionals. So anyone from kind of quality assurance, development, product owners, anyone within the technology space. We talk about how to engage with others, how to work within an office setting, remote work, because has its own set of challenges with that, and really how to grow yourself in your career and all the things outside of the technical aspects that most people focus on. It's been an incredible journey. I have my newsletter that I send out every week, and I get so much positive feedback just around how people haven't really thought about this space, and they recognize that there's a need. And it's one of those things where if you don't think about it, you generally don't actually put that into practice. And they're like, oh man, this is how I can actually approach that problem in a different way. So I'm trying to change some mindsets around how we can engage. I don't like the tropes around, oh, software engineers, they don't know how to talk to anyone. They just sit in a basement and work all day, because that's certainly not true. We're all nuanced, and we all have our own qualities and drawbacks that we work through every day. And I hope to highlight as many of those qualities as possible.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. So, as we talk about today's episode, a couple of things that I want to frame up here is as folks are listening today, the folks who may be listening, some of them are software engineers. I have a following. I know folks who listen, some of them are IT business analysts. We've got IT project managers. We've got folks who work with business analysts and project managers and folks in the agile space and everything between product owners. We've got that space. And then folks who work with them. So, business professionals who work with IT professionals who might perhaps wonder how do I do that better? So we've got that space. And then we also have others who are not in the IT space. Although recently I do recall having someone point out that we're all in technology now, right? We're all technology companies. We're kind of all in that space now. But so some who wouldn't consider themselves perhaps technology professionals or technologists. So I want to make sure that everyone who's listening understands that what we're going to talk about today, 3 ways to lift others up through positive influence, I think is the title that you've chosen for today. As we think about that we understand that this topic, this is for everybody. It's not just for the IT sector. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. I would say one of the most frustrating things at work, whether you're in IT or not in IT, is when you're trying to present an idea and you're unable to have it, cross the finish line because you can't get buy-in. So I think it really is a universal problem that we're all trying to deal with, and hopefully a way that people can find a way to lift themselves up and then others around them through this.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's get into it. So we're talking today about 3 ways to lift others up, and I think you're using a language. You're using positive influence as one of your underlying themes. Let's talk about that a little bit. What is positive influence?
Yeah, and I always start this kind of conversation around influence by talking about kind of just influence in general, and it really is leading others through thoughts and ideas. The big thing with that is it can be done in a positive way or a negative way. I think we can all think of situations where someone influenced our decision through negativity, whether that's force, manipulation, deception, guilt are big ones, and they happen more often at the in the workplace than you can even imagine. So, I look at this as a kind of example, like I need this marketing plan by tomorrow, or we're all going to be fired because we're not going to get this contract, and it's going to be an issue. And that will probably get you that marketing plan. It will probably influence the person to make that decision and get that across the finish line. But really, that's not a sustainable way to do it, and it's not a positive way to do it. So what I focus on when I frame up the conversation is how can we do this through inspiration, education, collaboration, all those positive aspects of getting buy-in to an idea.
So what might that look like? So you gave a great example of what the scare tactic, to lack of a better word, might look like. Give us a quick example in that same frame of what an inspirational one. What might that feel like to deliver or to
Yeah,
hear?
absolutely. So I look at it as, we need to get this marketing plan done by tomorrow because this client is, part of our long-term plan or strategy to focus on women-owned businesses, and we really want to uplift this organization and this area. And what's really cool about that is it focuses on the positive impact and the value that we're providing there, and it also shows a vision with that. And what ends up happening with that kind of positive approach is you're going to get more sustained and long-term value. Just like I was saying, you might get that individual marketing plan or that project across the finish line. It's not going to be something that carries through with the person. So really finding a way to influence in a positive way actually makes your job easier and leads to more long-term success.
This makes really good sense. So is everybody equally influential? Does everybody have equal influence around?
Yeah, and that's a really good question because most of us, when we think about influence, who's influential within an organization? You've got, the CEO, you've got the executives, you got managers, maybe subject matter experts and that sort of thing. But I actually like to focus on the people that you wouldn't necessarily off the top of your head think about as kind of influential. My perfect example is customers. Customers are incredibly influential to us. They pay us, they give us money, they have great ideas. They're the ones that are using the product every day. I look at new employees. So the joke is always when a new employee comes in, they kind of have a 3 to 6 month window to really make a difference within an organization. That's because new ideas and new perspectives have a lot of value within organizations. So that's an opportunity, if you're going to a new company to kind of flip the script on how you're approaching influence and how you're able to make decisions where maybe in the past you might have sat a little bit more in the shadows. This way you can actually take a little bit more of a proactive approach and know, oh yeah, I have an opportunity here to provide a little bit of influence within an organization. And I think the important thing with that is to really recognize that it's not just about the kind of title or the position, but really there's lots of opportunities within that, even if you don't have that position.
I'm thinking about it, following your thread on the new employees. I'm thinking about the fact that many of us behave better just because we know someone is watching. And when someone is new and they're looking at what we're doing and maybe even asking the question, okay, so tell me about that. This thing that you're doing over here, what is it that you're doing? And perhaps why are you doing it that way? We brush up our skills a little, right? Maybe we get a little defensive or a little protective about how or why we do something, but at least we're doing it the neatest or the tidiest or the most careful way we know how, because someone's looking over our shoulders, paying attention. And the fact that someone new is watching us, even their presence brings some influence there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think where I like to frame up the conversation is when you're in that situation, if you're a new employee or even an established employee, there's a couple different ways that you can approach this. And oftentimes you aren't going to have the opportunity in that situation to really be persuasive or show your expertise because you're not that expert that would typically have the ability to influence, but there's still opportunities out there for you to move the company forward in certain ways.
Yeah. So people who influence us individually, right? So we've each got mentors that we look at who influence us individually, and we've got leaders who influence us individually. When we think about people who influence individually, what is it about people that make us that make them influential? Why do they influence us?
Yeah, that's perfect kind of segue into kind of the meat of this conversation. Really is around, going through the idea of you've got the authority or the title, you've got, the really charismatic person that might get people to follow them. I talked about expertise. But really, I think the main points around this that I like to communicate are around value, trust, and empowerment. I think those are the three kind of core attributes of what makes someone influential and really influential in a positive way, where it's not just about their expertise or their title or anything like that, where they're actually providing some substance around what they're able to do.
Okay, so this is going to be this is where we're just going to pause and we're just going to anchor here for a second. So if you've been listeners, if you've been driving and you've been putting your coat on or getting ready, and you're like, okay, this is all the intro stuff. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. So tune in, dial in. This is the moment to focus because we're getting to the meat and potatoes here. We've set this up, and now we're gonna anchor in really really deeply here because this is where it matters, and this is how we're gonna because I want to get back to the title of this episode as well because this is where it really matters. What we're talking about here today, David, is you're talking about three ways to lift others up. And this is why I was so compelled by what you're bringing to the table here. It's not just about influencing, it's lifting others up. It's right, bringing something to the table. It's lifting up the people around us and perhaps even the work that we're doing, but we're lifting others up through positive influence. So not just influence, but positive influence. And you just said these three words, and we're going to spend some time. We're going to unpack them. We're going to focus on. We're going to look for some examples. We're going to look at what this really looks like. And you said three. You said value, trust, and empowerment. So I think let's take them apart in that order: value, trust, and empowerment. So value. What value to what? Value where? Value. Let's what?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea is between with value really is that people are looking to you to provide influence because you're actually making an impact. It really provides a blueprint to success or to other people within the organization or in your life, because oftentimes we have influence over everything going on around us, or we have opportunities to influence. So what I look at for this is really providing the I hate to say value in everything we do, but it really is kind of the foundation of how you can really influence and build others up. So, I look at this into a couple different areas, and I should apologize in advance. I really like communicating in threes. I think it's a good way to approach ideas and convey them. So most of these have three bullet points associated with them, three main ideas. So we're just going to
Hilarious. I
dig
like
right
it.
into it. So the first kind of portion of this value statement is really focusing on doing the little things and doing them at a high level. So this is where I like to start in this conversation because if someone is coming in and to an organization and they're focused on providing value, it's oftentimes not the really big splashy things because you're not able to necessarily do the really big splashy things. But if I see someone that is always showing up for meetings on time, is someone that is prepared for conversations, I see someone that is spending a little bit extra time to make sure someone knows exactly what's going on in a conversation, or I'm going to look at them as a leader. And really that's where you can start in on that conversation. And the great thing about it is you don't need a title. You don't need to do anything, really big with it. It's kind of that kind of baseline that you're able to do. And I tell people in the technology space, that's oftentimes what separates, a really good software engineer from a just okay software engineer is because they do those little things that make a big impact.
Yes. Okay. So let's these little things. I love knowing that you're talking about this. I've been talking about this for years. And here at Your Clear Next Step, we employ college interns, and this has been part of our mission and part of our strategy and our act of service to the world, I guess, for years, right? Since 2000, at least 2011, we've been bringing in college interns because I want them to see what a healthy workplace looks like, and I want them to see what it means to build good habits, and then to go out in the world and go do that other places. And we start with the little things, right? You show up on time and you take care with the little. And when we're packing, you've seen me bring in materials to a training place, and so you know that the prep work that we do for packing for our classes, there's stuff involved that the things have to be bound correctly, and the pen goes in a certain place for a certain reason, and we bring extra stuff, and then we unpack, and we do that with care. And even those little things, the counting out the pens and the counting out the materials and the putting the name tags in the right place so we can find them, those little things, it doesn't take a brilliant mind to do these
Yeah.
things. It takes doing it with care.
Yeah.
And when we're bringing interns, showing up a few minutes before your shift starts so that you have time to hang up your coat and to make human connection, and so that you can start your shift on time, and so that you remember to call people by their names, and that we build a relationship by knowing people's names. And oh, the little
Little
things.
bit.
And we still hand write and hand sign our Thanksgiving cards that we send out on an annual basis, because we sign our names and we hand address them, because those little things make a difference.
Yeah.
I love that you're talking about the little stuff.
Absolutely. And in the example that you brought up, I think that's a perfect example in this conversation. When you came and spoke at our organization 5+ years ago, one thing that was immediate, right, as we got into that discussion, is basically the entire company was there and everybody had a pen, everyone had everything that they needed to be successful, and it would really set the tone for that conversation we were able to have. And if you were to come into that and say, all right, does everybody have a pen? Okay, we all need to get pens. We need to do this sort of thing. We need to, get these little details ironed out. I don't think you would have had the same impact in that conversation. You probably wouldn't have gotten the same attention that you did in that discussion, because we would have been so focused on that. And you're like, oh, well, we brought this person in and they weren't prepared. And it makes such a big difference compared to the effort it takes to put in and do those little things.
Right. Right. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Solve real problems. That's
Yeah.
your second piece of value here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where this could actually be combined a little bit with the next one, but it's all tied to the work that we're doing. I tell the story about I have a coworker in a previous life who was really focused on optimizing processes and
Mm.
optimizing inefficiencies, which is great. But in a situation where we're trying to get a feature out for a customer or solve a problem for a customer that's calling in because I can't do my job and we're trying to optimize a process there, it's not solving the real problem for the customer. And focusing on the wrong areas means that people are less likely to engage with you and look to you to solve the next problem or influence a decision because they're going to be thinking about, oh, this person, they really only care about optimizing this thing versus actually getting to kind of the value prop that we need to provide for the customers, or they only care about this section. So I always tell people, what is the real problem that we're trying to solve here, and make sure that we're always aligned with that in the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. So one of the a class that I just taught I think it was just last week that I taught it, is one of our curriculum favorites. It's right stuff problem solving. And it's in our sort of model for this, we make sure that we're solving the right problem and then putting a right solution in place and then putting a right action plan in place. But the first step is make sure you're solving the right problem in the first place, that we're not just solving the first shiny problem that comes at us. No, we're solving the right problem. We're not getting distracted by the wrong problem or the problem that seems more fun to solve or the problem that seems more interesting than the real problem, or solving a symptom, that we're really solving the right problem and the problem that is the one that's going to return. And you started with calling this about providing value. Here at Your Clear Next Step, we talk about the things that we do as an organization, and the first thing that we do is we make sure that we're returning business value. So at the end of the day, the businesses that we work with have to be successful. If the business isn't successful, then we don't have a client, right? The customer won't buy our services. So the business has to be successful. We have to return business value, and that comes with solving the right problem.
Yeah. And the really interesting thing about that is oftentimes when you focus on solving the problem for the customer and going through that process, you actually have more time to focus on the areas that you may care about more. So for the person that was so focused on optimization didn't have the time to optimize the solution because they were going back and forth on trying to, was this the right problem to solve or not? But if they would have just focused on the problem, they could have had the extra time at the end to really work on the areas that they care about. So, a lot of these are really great because they allow you to be more influential, but they also give you back time and focus on kind of the right areas and be able to do the things that you love as well. So you get multitudes of benefits from that.
And then when you have time to do the stuff that you love, you have a better work day.
You're more engaged and you're more excited about what you're doing.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anything else we need to know about value?
No, I think that's really the kind of crux of it. And to kind of put a bow on this, really, when you're providing value, other people are going to want to have you in those conversations and engage with you because you're showing really that you know what the customer needs. For your example, you know what the business needs in those senses. So you're going to get a seat at the table to be able to have those conversations.
Love it. A business analyst mentor of mine years ago, he used to say one of the best compliments that a business analyst can get is to be invited back.
Mhm.
And the way that you do that is by focusing on the right problems, right? And as you say, by delivering value, right? So the best, to your point, you get invited back. You get invited back to those meetings. You get invited back. You get that seat at the table. I love it. Okay, so you said value, trust, and empowerment. Let's move to trust.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of my favorite areas to focus on because it's something that where people say, you got to trust me on this. Like that's usually when someone's trying to influence you, they're like, just trust me.
Yes, trust.
But you have to think about what have you done to build up that trust with that individual. If someone asks me to hey, can I have $100? I'm good for it. And they didn't pay you back from last time. Are you going to trust them? Are they going to be able to influence you to give them more money in that situation? And it's the same at work. You can think of it maybe a little bit negatively as a transaction, but there's a lot of transactions that are going on every day. And the great thing is this goes back to like value and doing those little things because that can also build up trust. But really, it focuses on when someone trusts you, they're more willing to take your word for things. So it actually makes your job a little bit easier when you're trying to influence and go through that action. I always like to tell people when you have trust, it builds up others to be able to, convey better ideas and communicate. So you get a little bit of a compounding value there where you're also getting to engage with them in a different way where they're more comfortable sharing ideas, taking the right kind of risks, collaborating with you. And it really ends up building up the entire organization. Makes everybody's day easier.
So David, I agree with you. Foundationally, I agree with you that trust is critical, and it's something that we have to build over time, and it has to be there. Let's get to some tactics. How do you do that? How do you get beyond theory? Like, oh, we should build trust.
And let's
Great.
just make it happen. Exactly.
Just make it
Uh,
happen.
so again, kind of my rule of threes here. I focus on being transparent, having integrity, and acting consistently. Those are three easy ways where, if we're doing the right things, having conviction in the right ways, in doing that in a consistent manner, that really makes people more likely to trust you because they know what they're going to get. If someone's a wild card and one day, they show up 15 minutes early for a meeting and then the next time they're 20 minutes late, I'm not going to trust them to show up for, the next meeting that we have on time because they're not acting consistently. Or when someone has an issue and they try and hide it, someone says, "Oh, I couldn't do this because, my internet was out." But you saw that they were online during that time and posting on LinkedIn or something like that, that erodes your trust. And if they would have just said, I just missed that meeting or I was late because I was looking at something online, I would rather have that answer than someone try and sweep it under the rug. And that really, I look at trust as it's difficult to get and easy to lose, so you have to be consistent. I tend to use that as my focal point of this conversation.
Yeah. I have recently been in a spot where trust has been eroded, and we're working on it's a group situation, and we're working on finding our way to rebuild eroded trust. And just, yeah, the whole idea of transparency. So I think you said earlier, transparency, integrity, and acting consistently. Yeah. Yeah, when that transparency is broken, then you start to scratch your head and you wonder, oh, are they being fully transparent this time? What didn't they say, and what wasn't said, and what's being said when we're not together? And the consistency. Well, okay, we have habits, we have patterns of this consistency, but whoa, that thing was wildly inconsistent. Why was it inconsistent? And if we have a big long history together of integrity and of consistent behavior, then the one-off is like, oh, well, that was weird. That was a one-off. We can go, huh, something weird happened. Let's be transparent about why it was weird and fix it and get back on. But man, it's hard. Trust is hard to build and easy to break.
Yes, very much so. And I had an example of this just yesterday. I had a meeting with a person on my team, and completely missed the mark on everything that we were supposed to talk about. I just didn't prepare. I was running all over trying to get projects done for the end of the year, and I could have, canceled last minute and said, yeah, I had something going on or whatever it was. But I got on the call and I made sure I communicated like, hey, I dropped the ball. This were the reasons why it happened. Here's what I'm going to do to be better about it because it's disrespectful of your time and it doesn't show my integrity and kind of how my convictions and how I work. And we're all going to fall down sometimes, and that's okay. But it's how you handle it when in those situations that really can impact your long term goals and what you're able to accomplish. Because if you don't have people that trust you to make the right decisions or have their back or go about things in the right way, then that's going to make it harder for you to advocate for what you need done or how you need to approach a problem or what's best for the business even.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull at that thread a little bit because I think that's really, really important. I don't think that influence, and I forgive me, but I don't think you do either, because you just said something really, really important. Influence doesn't require perfection. I think you just said beautifully, we're all gonna fall down sometimes. We're not expected, even positive influence doesn't demand of us that we be perfect. I assure you, I am not. I think you just I cited a great example where you were not, like you were ill prepared for a meeting. It's not about perfection. It's about owning it. It's about accepting accountability. Hey, I missed the ball on this one. I dropped it. I blew it. I messed up, and I'm sorry. And here's what I see led up to that. And here's how I learned from that. And here's how I'm not going to do that again. Right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's harder to do in the moment because it's so easy just to kind of sweep it under the rug or push it off. But it goes back to that integrity. And I think that's the other critical part of this is making sure that you're consistent and have integrity in the conversations that you're having.
And that's hard, David. That's hard. None of us wants to, because we don't want to let the other person down. And accepting accountability for our, dare I say, imperfections, accepting accountability for anything less than great is letting the other person down somehow. And so even if we're, sometimes when we're not apologetic in the moment, it's not even because we're being deceitful or we're trying to hide something. It's because we didn't want to let the other guy down.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all human and we all run into those situations and we all try and find our way out of those situations. But again, I always look at this stuff as compounding. And when someone sees that you're going through that process, they're more willing to do the same in the future and be open and honest with you. And what that ends up doing is making everybody's lives easier because I know what I'm going to get when I talk to, XYZ the employee. I know what I'm going to get in this situation, and that makes it so if they come to me and are asking something of me, I'm not sitting there and being like, do I actually think that this is what they're trying to do here, or are they trying to like do something on the side? It's I know what I'm going to get, and that is really valuable within an organization, especially a large organization where you've got thousands of projects going on at any one time, and you have to trust that other person that they're swimming in the right direction.
Yeah. So hard though it may be, it's worth the hard work because
Mhm.
that's how you build the trust.
Absolutely.
I love it. Okay, so let's go to the third one. So you said value, trust, and empowering others, was it?
Yes, absolutely. And this one is really interesting because again, kind of like value and trust, like it's a bit of a squishy word and a squishy phrase. So if you just take it on face value, you're like, yeah, yeah, I empower others around me. But what does that really mean? So I go back to trust, and trust is really a two-way street because if I'm expecting someone to trust me, I should trust them as well. And how do you build up trust with others besides having those convictions? It's by empowerment and giving them opportunities to be successful as well. So the way that I approach this is to really growing everyone within the organization. And like I alluded to a little bit earlier, if someone comes to me with an idea, or if I go to them with an idea, is the person, wanting the exact same goals as me? Who are they looking out for in this situation? And if you approach, I look at the example, if I ask someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I really need you bought into this project, or I need a little bit of your budget to be able to do X, Y, and Z." I'm like, is are you actually trying to do something that's good for the company here, or are you just trying to do some self-service for maybe something that you've got a goal on, or something that's tied to maybe a bonus or something like that? And if you don't have that trust, and if people aren't empowered to trust you, then they're going to be kind of questioning everything you're doing, and you're not going to be able to be successful when you try and influence people in a positive way. So. I've got a couple areas within here that I think can really help kind of make this a little less squishy as we go through.
All right, let's give it a whirl.
So, the first one is encourage autonomy. This is one where it's really difficult to do, especially for like remote teams where individuals don't know what everybody's doing like day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. It used to be really easy where you could just pop your head over the cubicle and say, "Hey, like I got this question," or talk through an idea. You can't do that anymore. And you have to have the expectation that the person there is going to be successful. The only way for them to grow is by doing. And if we are always, at the worst, kind of micromanaging, dealing with everything that goes along with that, it doesn't allow them to grow as an individual. So why are they going to support your ideas if they're not getting the growth they need from you?
For
I
sure.
always look at it as I had someone on a team of a number of years ago that if we got into a contentious conversation or we had conflicting ideas, would always, stop the conversation and say, do we all agree that we're all here to do a good job? And that was so powerful to just trust the other person to say, you're right. You got this. I trust that you're here to do a good job, and I just need to let you do that. And what that allows you to do is you're empowering them to feel like they have a say and they have value, so they're more willing to do the same for you.
Hmm. So this one gets tricky if you have experience being this can get tricky for control freaks, and I know that we've got a couple control freaks who listen from time to time. So it can get tricky for control freaks or recovering control freaks. It can also get tricky if you've been burned before. Can you offer any suggestion for either of those groups?
Yeah, just like when we were talking about the trust conversation, it's not something that happens overnight. So you have to build up that muscle. And it's something where I used to have a dashboard of everything that was going on within my team and everything that we had going on. And I would try and have that up to date, as much as possible and asking questions.
Oh,
And that was really hard.
this
And
sounds
and what
hard.
I found was like I was spending more time doing that than actually doing my job. And it was actually causing issues with me being able to get the things that I said I was going to get done. So I actually flipped my approach to that. And that's kind of my suggestion on this is, even if you've been burned before, um, you have to trust that the other person's manager, or if you're the manager, you're having those conversations around what the expectations are and allow them to either succeed, hopefully, or find a way to move on from that. Because it is a really difficult area to live in if you feel like you have to juggle all of these plates. So I don't have a great like solution other than you almost just have to let go a little bit of that because a company and a team or an organization or a family is not able to function at a high level if everything has to get communicated all the time and you don't have the trust that the other people are going to get their jobs done. You can't be successful. You spend most of your time just managing those relationships and those conversations than actually doing the work that you need to do.
Right. Or if one person is doing the work of multiple people that's and they're not empowering the others to do their own work, that it's not going to sustain.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very common problem that happens with an organization. There's a book and I have to remember what it's called, but basically the one of the big aspects of it is it's the Phoenix Project actually. It's a development book around a manager that's kind of getting injected into an organization and seeing kind of what some of the different archetypes are and everything. And there was this one person that was the hero or the lone wolf who would just come in and swoop and solve every problem and manage all that. And then they realized that person is spending 90 hours a week. They're not able to be successful, and everyone else dislikes that person because they're not able to grow themselves and they're not able to learn the new skills because it's expected that this person will just come in and solve all the problems. So it really does limit growth. So that's a really big aspect of empowering others is making sure that people have the autonomy to succeed and fail at times.
Yeah. And if what they need to do is fail and learn from that, right? That sometimes that's the greatest teacher.
Exactly.
You bet. So, what else? How else can we empower others?
Yeah, this one's really easy. It's probably maybe the easiest one in here. Saying thank you, recognizing
Oh,
others. It is again like those little things that you can do that have a really big impact. We're all so busy day to day at work in our lives that you just expect things are just getting done and just things are happening behind the scenes. But that little bit of recognition really builds people up and it also enforces really good behavior. So if you thank someone for getting a project done early or communicating that they weren't going to be to a meeting on time before so you could have 5 minutes to refresh your coffee or do whatever you need to do, that goes a really long way. So I like that as a way to reinforce both positive behavior and also give people encouragement to go down the right path. And they also know that this person's going to appreciate if I actually stick my neck out for them or I go to bat for them. So they're going to be more likely to be engaged with you when you actually talk through something that you're trying to influence.
well, and the more that we spend in conversations praising people and celebrating people and recognizing them for their efforts, the more our names get associated with good stuff, right?
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. The
And
positivity behind it all. It's a little thing, but it goes a long ways.
goes a long way. I would rather have my name associated with the good stuff than the garbage.
Yes, exactly.
You
And
bet.
so lastly, and this one I think is really important, is bring in diverse perspectives. When we talk about engaging with others, having big meetings, it's really difficult to get buy-in from people when they don't feel like they have a voice.
Mm.
So I always tell people like make sure we're communicating with others and bringing them into the conversation. One thing, and this would be the nugget that I would want everybody to go away with, is the example of someone that doesn't really speak out in meetings. Oftentimes, what people do is like, oh, so and so isn't a much of a talker, so I'm going to call on them in this meeting to provide their feedback. That is not necessarily the best approach because it puts the person on a spot who might not want to talk in that conversation and puts them in a spot where they have to, be on and be on quickly. So what I actually tell people is if you want to bring in diverse perspectives, if you want to get feedback from people that might not speak out as much, say before the meeting, hey, we've got a meeting in a couple hours. I really like your perspective on this project. I'm going to ask you to speak a little bit to that effect in the meeting. And the great thing is that empowers them. It encourages them to prepare for it or however they want to do it. And they feel like they're listened to. And so they're going to go to bat for you again as well. And it's just a really positive way where they can feel successful in that situation as well.
I love that. It also, David, it's also tying very specifically to a communication need that they may have, which is the time to think and to prepare their thoughts rather than to be put on the spot. It may in fact be a communication preference of theirs that the processing time of gathering their thoughts and organizing them and preparing them in advance rather than speaking on the off the cuff is a strong enough preference of theirs that off the cuff remarks are not a thing for them. But if you've given them even 2 hours to prepare or an hour or even a half an hour to prepare, they would have jotted something down and they would have come into that meeting with those thoughts jotted down and they'll be fully empowered and wildly engaged.
Absolutely. It's a really small thing, but it goes big ways in terms of getting people engaged with you and want to really go to bat for you. And I think that's a big part of everything we do is building up those relationships and providing a positive interaction with them.
It's really lovely. As you talk about these other two ideas, so you started with value, providing value, and I immediately jumped on the fact that here at your clinic step we teach three things, and the first thing that we teach is returning business value. We work in three domains, and the first one is returning business value. The second one, which your other 2 points really just honed in on, the second thing we teach is making authentic human connection, because businesses don't run themselves, right? People
Mhm.
run business, and so that authentic human connection, all of those things about emotional intelligence and all those things about our communication styles and influence and how we lift one another up and how we connect as humans, that's really what makes businesses hum. They have to be successful, they have to be profitable, but what makes them cool, what makes them fun, what makes part of the workday so cool is being able to make that authentic human connection. And I think you've hit on that beautifully through trust and empowerment. The third domain that we talked about that you haven't tied in here specifically is change, and that change is not an event, it's a process. But I think influence, to your point about how we influence the whole idea of change. If you want to bring people through change, the only way to do that is to influence others through change. And you have to do that positively, and you have to do that in a way that returns value to the organization. So all three of the things that you've talked about here are required in order to bring people through change. So yeah, lockstep. I'm lockstep in what you're talking about here, David.
We're just building each other up here. I love it.
Absolutely. So as we're winding down, is there a closing remark, or to wrap this all up in a bow or tidy package? Anything that you would want to sort of tie this out with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all goes back to really focusing on the fact that influence can be positive or negative, and how we approach our influence and how we get people to buy in really enables the organization to operate at a higher level, gives us more opportunity, gives us a seat at the table, and really, I would say, they say rising tide lifts all boats, and it empowers others around us to do the same thing. Makes a more positive environment for everybody to engage with.
Absolutely. I love it. David, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful for your insights and for the time that you shared with us today. This has just been a joy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. So this would not be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask you my trademark question, though. What's making you even better these days?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll make this quick because I could talk for hours about this. I have really lately gotten back to physical notebooks, writing things down, reading books, drawing, that sort of thing. I think there's a cognitive, disconnect where we're all in front of a computer and we're, at most typing, maybe swiping, whatever it may be. The physical act of using like a pencil or drawing, it helps us connect ideas to what we're doing. And it's really helped me re-engage, especially being, within a remote organization to tie ideas I'm working back with. It's not so much that like what I wrote down is super high quality or really well written or anything like that, but it's just the act of doing that has really helped me, have an even better day.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that. So if any of our listeners, David, want to reach you or want to know more about the work that you're doing, how should we? Well, of course, happily to connect them. They can reach out to us and we'll connect them to you. But how else can they find you?
Absolutely. You can find me at David at MoreThanCoders.com. Check out our website. We have a newsletter. It's also on LinkedIn. Come find me there as well. I'm happy to have any sort of conversation around soft skills, professionalism, technology, you name it.
Fantastic. Great. Well, David, thank you again so much for your time. It's been a joy to have you. And for all of those who are listening today, thank you so much for your generosity of time. Thanks for listening. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.